I'm here with Carole Ghosn, and Carole, it's been 1 year since your husband Carlos was arrested. He's currently out on bail, but in Japan, that's a lot different than out on bail in the U.S. What are the restrictions on him?
First of all, I haven't seen my husband in almost 8 months or spoken to him. This is the first bail restriction they put on us. And actually, in this 1 year, yesterday was his 1 year of his arrest, I've only seen him 1 month. So this is the first very hard and severe and inhumane restriction that's on us. They have no reason because I have nothing to do with the case legally. I'm not involved, so we don't understand why they won't let us see each other.
Now, the Japanese prosecutors argue that you shouldn't be allowed to see each other because you've criticized the Japanese legal system. You could conspire and exchange material. And as well, they say that you've participated in the destruction of evidence. How do you respond to that?
First of all, it's not true. I knew nothing about my husband's business, so there's nothing to destruct. It's not true. And second of all, I did not criticize their system. I think I stated the facts of how my husband was treated when he was detained and about what is called now their hostage justice system, how they, detain a person and they don't allow a lawyer to be present while he's being interrogated, and it's under very severe conditions, and they keep them there, they coerce them until they confess. That's why they have a 99.4 conviction rate, just like China and Russia, because of the system that they have in place.
But the system that's in place applies to everyone. You worry, I know, that Carlos won't get fair treatment because he's not Japanese, because he's a foreigner. What evidence do you have to suspect that?
Well, after my husband got arrested, there was a Japanese CEO who took his place called Mr. Saikawa. And then Mr. Saikawa, we find out that he earned unearned money. He had money that he wasn't supposed to receive. And my husband did not take any money and was arrested for 130 days in solitary confinement. This man admitted to taking money, and he gets fired. He gets to go home to his wife, live a normal life, while I haven't seen my husband in like almost, I told you, 8 months, and he was detained for 130 days in solitary confinement.
But it's not just the charges that Carlos faces from Japan. In September, Carlos settled with the SEC, civil charges that he hid more than $140 million in compensation. Doesn't this hurt his case in Japan? Because a judge in Japan could see this settlement as weakening his argument that he was framed.
He settled in the U.S. because he wanted to focus on his trial in Japan. He didn't want to open two fronts. And when he settled with the SEC, there was no admission or denial. So, I mean, to make it clear, there was, even the SEC says there was no money taken.
So the SEC and Carlos Ghosn's settlement did not involve any admission or wrongdoing, but what about the accusations themselves that he misreported income, that there was misused company funds?
Okay, misreported income. They've accused Carlos of a future bonus that he's going to receive once he retires. The bonus was not approved. He didn't sign off on it. The board did not sign off on it. So how can you arrest a person and put them in jail for money he has not received and he hasn't even been approved? So apparently this Japanese system, this judicial system, because they wanted to get rid of him, because they did not want to merge with Renault, the French company, and they were scared of this merger, they found the easiest way to do it was to put my husband in jail. This was the way they wanted to get rid of him. Don't you think there could have been a more civil way to do this? Couldn't the board have met with him and spoken to him and said, we'd like you to step down? This is so violent, and they've destroyed our lives, and we are scarred forever. And over what? If you think about it, who has won in this? Nissan, you saw how badly they're doing. Renault is doing badly. Japan, their reputation has been ruined. I don't know what foreign businessman would think twice of working in Japan after what happened to my husband. And my husband's life has been destroyed, and the alliance, this merger between Renault and Nissan, has been destroyed. So who won in this?
The thing is, though, when you look at the situation and Carlos is out on bail, bail is more the exception than the rule in Japan. Judges in Japan are less likely to grant bail to those who fight charges. Do you think that all the pressure and all the publicity surrounding his arrest led to their granting bail, not once, but twice? Because it's not typical for them to grant bail.
Yes, I think because they've been criticized a lot and their system, I didn't know anything about their system. I'm sure a lot of us didn't know that they were so strict and severe. And there's so much Western criticism that I think they decided for political reasons to let him out on bail, but to put him under very severe and strict bail conditions. And so they're still punishing him. He's still being held hostage.
Now, Carlos holds French, Lebanese, and Brazilian passports. He has children who live in the United States. You've called upon Presidents Macron, Presidents Trump, and Bolsonaro to intervene and to help Carlos. How far along have you gotten in this request for help?
Wow, well, it's a long fight. I mean, I've called upon all of them. The French have finally started to react. Actually, President Sarkozy was in Japan for maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and he met with my husband with the approval of Macron. And also now a bunch of French government senators and ministers have signed a petition to repatriate Carlos to France or to get him more humane treatment. So the French are finally moving. The Americans, unfortunately, I haven't seen anything yet, even though I am an American citizen and I've been deprived of my rights from seeing my husband, and Carlos's children are American, and I'd like to see more involvement from the American government, especially since Japan is part of the G7 and they've signed all these international treaties, and obviously they violated all these human rights treaties with the treatment of my husband, or we've seen it. I'm sure they've done it before, but now it's out in the open.
How about Brazil?
Brazil, we're trying. Also, we haven't gotten as far as we'd like, but we're trying.
And what specifically do you want them to do?
First of all, I'd like for my husband to get a fair trial. At this point, from what we've been seeing during the pre-trial, it doesn't look like he's going to get a fair trial. Or I'd like him to get repatriated to France and let them, judge him in France.
Okay, so the first preference is for him to be repatriated to France.
Absolutely.
Now, in terms of the timing of a trial, we're hearing that it could be sometime next year, April 2020. Others say it'll be after the Olympics. What are you hearing? Either way, it's a long time.
It's like I said, it's been a year already. We still don't have all the documents. He can't defend himself. They haven't given us all the documents. And they're saying maybe it's April, maybe it's after the Olympics. And of course, I'm sure they want it after the Olympics because they don't want anything to ruin the reputation of Japan during the Olympics, especially since Abe is trying to globalize Japan and changing the image of an isolated country to opening it up. But, we have nothing firm. Till now, we don't have all the documents. So how could my husband defend himself? And why is it taking so long? From what we hear, it's because they have no evidence. They've put him away, and now they're looking for evidence.
How are you coping with this situation? You say that you can't communicate with your husband, you can't see him. How do you get updates from him? How do you get updates to him?
It's been the hardest year of my life. I communicate with him. I ask about him through his children and his sisters. And this is how I communicate with him. But, at a time where I need him the most and he needs me the most, and they're purposely punishing us, and I don't understand why they're harsh. He's done so much good for Japan, and they treat him with so much evil.
You're obviously very outspoken on this. You spent a lot of time talking about what's going on with Carlos. The lawyers have told you that anything you say could hurt him in the trial. Why do you continuously speak out?
I'm not speaking about the legal case. I'm speaking about the human rights side to it, and I find it so inhumane not being able to see him, and his detention to be detained in solitary confinement, to have the lights on 24/7, not to have a lawyer present, to take showers twice a week, to have 30 minutes walk on the roof only 5 days a week. Why are they so harsh? What has he done? Why is he being treated this way over what? In the US or in Europe or in other democracies, he would not have done a day in jail for this.
So you're saying that in Japan it's guilty until proven innocent?
Until proven innocent, yeah.
I know that you've spent a lot of time traveling around. You have homes in New York and also in Europe. Have you gone back to Japan? Have you set foot in Japan?
You know, I was with him the second time he got arrested, and I was traumatized the way they treated me, and I saw like a small percentage of how they treat the people that are detained. Frankly, it's very scary. And then I had to go back a few days later to testify because they said, oh, she ran away. I did not run away. I was scared. I was all by myself in a country that I knew no one. They took all my phones. I couldn't communicate. And I went back and I testified in good faith, and I've been cleared. And since then, since I can't see him, why am I going to go to Japan? It's too painful.
And has anyone from Japan reached out to you? Do you get messages of condolences from Japan?
Just his lawyers.
All right, Carole Ghosn, thank you so much. Carole Ghosn, wife of Carlos Ghosn, who of course was arrested a year ago on allegations of financial misconduct.
Thank you.